Hello friends! Welcome to another Artist Alley's Tips video. Today we're going to talk about prints. Prints are probably one of the most common items to sell at an Artist Alley. For those that don't know what prints are essentially copies of an illustration. Usually they're digital, or at least most of the ones I've seen are prints of digital works, but it can be copies of traditionally done illustrations like marker or paintings. The basic gist of it is that it's a copy of an illustration and not necessarily the original illustration. So here are some tips for selling prints at conventions. First thing to consider is sizing. The sizing for prints can kind of be broken down into three categories: small or postcard size, standard size, and poster size. Honestly, I don't think there's too much difference in the popularity between the different sizes. It's up to you to decide what size print you want to sell. Small prints are really good for customers who want a lot of prints but don't have a lot of space where they want to have it hung up. And poster sizes are good for customers who want large statement pieces for their rooms. And in my convention experience, I've never really noticed one size to be more popular than the other. So really it's kind of up to you what size you want to print at. One factor you should probably consider though when deciding on sizes is what can you have made? Unless you have a specialty printer, for instance, you'll likely have to get your posters printed through a printing company. So if you only have a standard printer at home, small and standard size prints are probably going to be the easiest to produce. So long story short with that, I don't think you can go wrong with sizing. But it may be a good idea too to set up a poll or something to gauge interest from any followers you have on social media, what size prints they prefer to purchase. If you don't have a social media following, it might just be easiest to start off with small or standard size prints, and if you gain good traction with sales on your prints, you can try to go for larger sizes. The next thing you should probably consider is paper type. The most typical paper types are matte paper and glossy paper. Glossy prints tend to show vibrant colors better, but matte prints don't run the risk of having nasty fingerprints all over, and you don't have to worry about shine on the image. So again, I would say that this is a personal preference thing, whichever you prefer for your image. Although I would recommend that if you have a very simple style that doesn't have a lot of shading, is more simple forms and colors, I think matte paper would probably look better for those kinds of illustrations. Whereas if you have works that include a lot of detail and gradients and things like that, glossy prints would probably complement your illustration very, very well. Some printing places actually offer specialty paper like sparkle paper, glitter paper, pearl paper, and many other effects. These effects can look really, really good when paired with the right illustration. For example, a very colorful rainbow-esque illustration looks great with some added sparkle. You'll probably have to shop around to find places that offer these services, but there are quite a few. I actually found glitter paper that you could purchase in a store and print off on your own printer. I did a review of it a while back, so if you're curious about that, take a look at it when you're finished with this video. The next thing to consider is how many prints should you have in stock? Well, it depends on the size of the convention you're going to and how your prints are being printed. If you are going to a convention with very high attendance, then it makes sense to print off a lot more prints than you would if you're going to a small convention with a low number of attendants. If you're printing them off yourself and you have access to a printer throughout the convention, you can get away with printing off fewer of them and then printing more as you need them. But if you're getting them printed through a company, I would recommend getting them in bulk because usually ends up being cheaper in the long run. I would say at the bare minimum, I would keep in stock 5 prints per illustration, regardless of the size of the convention. But if you are going to a bigger convention, you would definitely need to stock a bit more than that. You can always sell the leftovers after the convention is over at other conventions you may be attending, or if you have an online shop, you can sell them there. If you have no plans for other conventions or an online shop, then maybe that's something to consider and you should stick to a lower stock amount. The last thing to consider is pricing. Best thing to do is to look around and see what your fellow artists are pricing their pieces at. And this is a good tip for pricing your other works in general. If you're selling at a convention, take a walk around before the artist alley opens to the public and see how other tables are pricing their work. It's a good idea to price your work similar to those so that you're not underselling yourself but not pricing yourself out of the market either. For me, I price my prints depending on the size and the paper type, and it can be anywhere between $5 for my smallest prints to $20 for my largest prints done with specialty paper. I would say anything around that range, assuming you're in the United States, is probably good. So for some final notes, prints are a great starting point for first-timers. If you have never been to a convention before and you have no idea how well your artwork is going to sell, prints are a very good first item to try out. It's a very low cost to get started, and it's potentially very easy to do on your own in regards to printing them out and file setup. Also, if you are inclined, I encourage you to sign your works too. Many people really like when artists sign their works. Personally, I've gotten into the habit of signing all my prints before the start of the convention, so that if I'm away from my table for any reason, no one has to wait on me to return to get their print signed. So yeah, be proud of your work and sign it. And that's it for this week's video. If you have any more questions in regards to prints, please leave a comment on this video. And if you just have any other questions in general in regards to the Artist Alley, also leave those questions in the comments. I look at every single comment that I get, and it helps me decide what videos to work on next. So until next time, friends, have a good one!